I'm just going to walk you briefly through a couple pieces of the Wisconsin aspects of things, and then I'll turn it over to Bob. There is a link for online VITA tax training. It's a long and clumsy link, and so I didn't even bother putting it in the slideshow here because it's too hard to copy down. We'll email it to all of you, but I'd encourage you to go through that. It's going to walk you through different things related to homestead credits, new deductions that you can claim in Wisconsin, like for tuition and things like that. So most of what you do in that federal tax return is going to pull forward into the Wisconsin return, but there are some little differences that you need to be attentive to, and that training is going to help you feel confident about those materials. I do want to talk about the homestead credit because this is an incredibly popular credit for us. This is a wonderful handout from the UW Extension Office about what the credit is and who's eligible for it. We will often see people who come to our site who want to only file homestead. You know, they don't have the income that requires them to file a federal return, but they can still claim that homestead credit. The difference, the reason that that's possible is if somebody's only income is Social Security, they're not being taxed on that at a federal level. But Wisconsin says, well, that's income for the purposes of living. And so where they might not need to file a federal return, if they want that homestead credit, they have to report the amount of Social Security income. And so you can see the general income limit is nearly $25,000 for people to claim homestead. There are some scenarios where that might be reduced based on certain tax situations. But like the earned income tax credit, it's available to people who don't have a filing requirement. It's also available to people who have no income at all. So that's the difference between earned income tax credit and the homestead credit. Every person is required to have a property tax bill or a completed rent certificate in order to claim the credit. Most people who are coming through the door know this. They're not coming in without any knowledge of Wisconsin's homestead credit, and so they'll most likely have that information for you. I think what you would be more likely to see is that people will come in and they won't have their rent certificate completed. There is an option, and you can see it on the back side. What if my landlord refuses to sign my homestead certificate or rent certificate? That is acceptable with documentation. And so they would need to bring in canceled checks or money order receipts to verify the amount of rent that they paid. There are no exceptions to that. And so somebody can't bring in a bank statement that shows automatic withdrawals. They've got to have copies of the canceled check or money order. And so it can be a little bit tricky as we're working with people there. But again, most people come in prepared with the information that they need, and so you just want to be attentive to helping them get that credit. There's an extra layer of submission with the homestead credit. So even though we can electronically file the Wisconsin return, we have to separately submit the documents that prove the homestead claim, and so you'll just work with your site coordinator on that. It's nothing you need to worry about, but just be aware that if you're doing a homestead claim for someone, you want to bring your site coordinator into the loop on that so they get the photocopies and things that they need to fill out that extra portion. I also wanted to let you know about some of the nuances that you'll see when you get in tax-wise for the Wisconsin return. So if someone is coming in and the only thing they want to file is homestead, if they don't have income that requires them to file a federal return, we don't want to file a zero return for them at the federal level in order to file that Wisconsin. There's a spot where you can actually unlink it. And so at the bottom of Wisconsin Form 1, page 3, you'll see in bold, how helpful do you want to electronically file this return? And then not in bold, underneath, you'll be able to check the box to unlink it. And that will allow the site coordinator to only file the Wisconsin return, not the federal. This isn't our preference. We really want to be serving people who are filing both federal and state, but we also understand the impact of this credit. It's almost $1,200 that's a refundable credit for families, and so we're not turning people away if the only thing that they want to file is a Wisconsin return. The other thing that you'll see in the Wisconsin interview form is you'll have to enter some state information. And as with many pieces of TaxWise, when you have these red fields, it's very particular about how you enter the information. So those of you who have been in TaxWise already have probably seen there are some fields where it'll be red, but you can't actually enter anything because it's supposed to be linked to somewhere else in another form. This is a case where you're actually going to enter it, but you've got to do it correctly. So when you're entering the city or village or town information, you're keying that in. But when you get to the 2-digit county code and the 4-digit school code, those have to be entered in a very particular way. It's supposed to be a drop-down menu, so that if you enter the 2-digit county code, which here in Portage is 49, it should then give you that drop-down menu so that you can select 49 space Portage. But if it doesn't, then you see that it tells you very clearly there, 2-digit code, a space, and the county. And ditto for the 4-digit school code. We'll have one of these available in every person's tax materials. And so you've got every school district code in the state and every county code. Now generally at your site, you're going to be working with a pretty consistent, this is the county and this is the school district. But again, if you're doing friends and family returns, or we do have people who sometimes travel from one county to another for tax preparation, you've got your cheat sheet. You don't have to try and sift through all of that information.